Okay, okay. I know I owe it to you. I need to expand upon that a little bit. I am fully aware of how the Khazarian Mafia had an agenda in place and was working hard at it for many years, centuries. But there was an unawareness at that time, even as they finally took control of the American economy, and which has led to our current situation in 1913 with the Federal Reserve. Again, a digression, but very important because that set the stage for everything terrestrial that was happening amongst a group of people that wanted to subjugate and enslave the common person, strip them of all of their liberties and freedoms that we still enjoy, although barely. But this agenda was in place and had been for some time. That's the long and the short of that. The reality that changed for all of them was the arrival from the omnipotent Highness Krill, which was the alleged ambassador from these aliens that told the first humans at the IPU, the Interplanetary Phenomena Unit, what they wanted to hear. And those people wanted to use the information so they could barter with and make agreements with these extraterrestrials for the technology that they would need so they too could zip around our skies and control the earthlings below. That was their goal, and they were willing to sell us out. And in fact, they did go so far as to sign these treaties, which they're null and void because we didn't agree to them. They would have to be ratified by a Senate, and the public would have to be aware of the issues themselves. I think that is exactly as the Constitution puts it. Nonetheless, that has, as I said earlier, that set the stage for the confrontation between those that knew about this and wanted to utilize all the public's resources for their own benefit, such as with the building of the deep underground military bases. The agenda behind that was never so much the Cold War, which was almost a fabrication designed to keep the arms industry going, but never really designed to conflate into an actual war. And as we saw, it was resolved without any hot war. But it did great for the arms industry. Anyway, it's unfortunate that we can no longer use that business model because not that many people actually died. When you look back over the history of it, something to think about. But in any event, there were Russians that were added later on, in fact, to the global, the committee, the Committee of 300, but there were many different committees that have been involved with this, but chiefly the Bilderbergers. That came about as a result of the elite learning of the secrets of the not just the extraterrestrial reality, but the reality had incurred upon our own reality to warn us of this pending event, which is regular in our Earth's history, and that information has been known by the world's religious authorities and kept hidden from the public, ever since their founding. And that's another reality that humanity is awakening to. And once they fully awaken to the ramifications of that, I don't see how anyone can go to church with anything other than the curiosity at what hypocrisy they maintain control over with us with for so long. Anyway, that group is the one that knew about what was coming, and that the purpose was to emplace themselves so that they would be the only ones left after everyone else would die from what is coming. And by then they would have perfected the art of artificial intelligence, along with nanotechnology, and in essence become creators of the forms of slavery that they could rely on without worrying about their political affiliation, because you can trust a machine as long as you know how to turn it on and off, right? something to think about there, too. But consider that. So here you have this small group of elitists that sacrifice children. That is the worst kept evil secret that is in place to keep the mouthpieces of the culture from telling the truth. The politicians, the media, all of them have been compromised to some degree by the exploitation of children sexually and with their very lives for their adrenochrome. And many of you hearing this, I'm sure you've been aware of this for some time. This isn't new information. In fact, I can't see how it's new information to anyone but those who have kept their ears and eyes slavishly stuck to mainstream propaganda. It's amazing what happens, what a relief it is, what a great place the world is when you've broken free of those narratives. Anyway, what is it? Singing with the choir. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So that's just another insight into the next step as to how these two sides then formed. The other side was never conscious enough of what was going on, and those few that wanted to say something about it, do something about it, well, look what happened to Secretary of the Navy and then Secretary of Defense James Forrestal. Certain the evidence shows that he was murdered. It was not suicide. He didn't just jump out a window. It's one of the so-called suicides, or it was an assassination, just as JFK would suffer from later. Anyway, so that's setting the stage. The 1950s, we have the warmongers, those that are building the bunkers for themselves and their progeny, getting everything set up so that when the time came, they would be able to eliminate the majority of the cattle, as they refer to us. The eugenics they even employed in North Carolina as a test run until it ran to some very stiff opposition. I'm referring to a eugenics program by which those that in the 8th grade would take a test, and if they were found to be substandard, below the mean average in certain basics that were used to measure their usefulness to society, then they would be sterilized. Can you imagine that? Of course, the few people that heard about it were outraged, and so they quickly put an end to it, but that was one of the original programs that the satanic elite was working with. Of course, they've been around for so many years, and adrenochrome was nothing new to them. In fact, it's only been new to most of us for the past 6, 7, 8 years. Maybe less. Anyway, that'll be it for now. I'll be back with a few more thoughts later on. Thanks again.